Hello again and welcome to Kevin Hunt's Dragon Dart Racing and Videos. And our next little off-season thing, maintenance-wise, we're going to do to the Dart is we're going to check the brakes. We're going to start with the rear first because the rear brakes are very important, especially on a foot brake car. So let's get started. Okay, what we have here is just good old-fashioned drum brakes on this 1970 Dodge Dart, but there's a lot of little things I've done to it to upgrade it. I know people say disc brakes, and I do have Wilwoods on the front. I do like them very well, but rear brakes are very important, as I said earlier, on a foot brake car, because that's the brake that really holds you when you're trying to bring it up on the converter. I mean, you see a car, and this happened to me more than once, if you're sliding those front tires, that's all those front brakes can do. The wheel's not turning, that's it. Your holding power is back here when you're doing a foot brake car because it keeps the axle from turning. So there's a delicate balance on there, and that's why when cars get up to a certain power level, a lot of times they'll go ahead and convert to a trans brake because that'll lock a forward and a reverse gear at the same time, and then you let go of the button, bang, you're off. And it does launch harder. But we like to do old school things. So even though this looks like a standard brake, there's a lot of modifications I've made that may not be noticeable. So I'll walk you through them while we check to make sure that they're okay for next season. Alright, we'll start by pulling the drum off. I don't adjust them real tight because you don't want them dragging when you're racing. So I have them just where they're real close, and like 2 pumps and you've got full pedal. Alright, well, as you can probably see already, those look pretty good. What we're checking for is any seepage from your axle bearing area, and then of course brake fluid, which we don't see any. There's nothing there. Everything looks good. Of course we got the long wheel studs on there for your various types of wheels you want to run. And so right now it looks good. So all I would do as far as maintenance, I just take me a little sandpaper here. This is 60 grit. 60 or 80 will work just fine. And you just kind of lightly do this. Just kind of give it a nice edge. Kind of give it a new surface to grip to. Just kind of like that, so. Then we'll just follow up with a little bit of brake paint, put a pan under it to catch it before it evaporates. Just like so. That's almost like brand new. You know, you check the condition of your springs and all your hardware on there. Your adjuster. We don't use the self-adjuster, we just use the adjuster. We don't want them self-adjusting every time you back out of your pits or out of your behind your trailer, because that's when the old self-adjuster would work when you backed up and hit the brakes and give it one click. And that's how it kept the brakes tight. So, and to just back up one little bit, the car is still up on the safety stands if you watch my transmission service video. So remember, always use jack stands. Do not get under the car or work on a car with just the jack. Remember, a jack is just a lifting device. The jack stand is for setting the car on. Okay? Since the brakes are okay and they don't really need anything, let me show you the upgrades I've done to this, because you can make drum brakes work pretty well. And then again, I'm old school, the old hot rodder way. You know, you kind of make stuff work. And the old guys that do the street rods, they know exactly what I'm talking about too. So what we've got here, let me show you. The brake shoes that are on here measure, if I get the tape, I want to get it back in there. There we go. They're 2.5 wide, and the drums measure 10 inch. All right, now this is the original shoe in this hand. These are the shoes that's on the car in this hand. These originals were only, get the tape measure out, 1 3/4, and as I said earlier, these are right at 2.5. So that's quite a bit more braking surface. And you can't just go throw these on the old backing plates, so let me show you what I did to be able to use these brake shoes. These backing plates are from a Dart at least a 76 or so Dart like one of my other car. It came factory with that size brake. So I got the braking plates, I bought a new spring kit and new wheel cylinders, and then of course it's just a matter of bolting it on to the axle housing. Now that created a new problem though. As I zoom in, the 76, when they upgraded to the brakes, the axles were different too. This has the old style 8 3/4 small bolt pattern axle style in it. These are actually Mosers that have been dual drilled for small and large bolt patterns. You can see there's the M and the E if you look real close. So the axle button is a different size. So that's what really centers the drum. So what do? The brake drums on the front on this car were, guess, 10 by 2 1/4. So being the inventive gearhead of myself, I just popped the hub out, which was just a matter of driving the wheel studs out. And these brake drums were available new at the time that I got this. So I was able to get front brake drums, and the front brake drums aftermarket did not come with the hub. You had to change the hub, put the hub back in that. I'd show you the hubs, but I already sold them to a guy fixing up an old car. I let him have them for a song. I was never going to use them again. So you do that, and then voila, it fits right up on there. So we put that back on there. Of course, they were drilled for small bolt pattern, but I was able to just chalk them. I bolted them to the thing with the old wheel studs and drilled them to match the new axles. And then the next thing I want to show you, the little modification we did, and it's nothing I thought of. I picked this up a tip for some other guys that foot braked race many years ago. In this era of car, you have what's called a primary, which is the front, and the secondary shoe, which is the rear. And in this year of car, as I said earlier, the primary shoe was a shorter shoe and the secondary shoe was a longer shoe. See, I'll do that for comparison. Here's a new primary shoe. And you put it up here and you match it up evenly, and you can see how there's less surface here and the same amount, actually just a little more on the bottom. There's a little less. So what you do is you buy 2 sets of brake shoes and you put secondary shoes on both ends, and that gives you that little extra at the top. And when you're foot braking it really hard, this is really a lot of pressure right in this area here, and that gives you a little more surface and a little bit more holding power. And lastly, I want to show you, this is my flex line going from the frame to the axle to your T-block. You can see there, and the vent to the rear end. That is a stainless, that is a braided line, not the rubber line. Let me see if I can get there. Oh, blurry. There you go. And that will give you more brake pressure. Them brake lines flex quite a bit, those rubber ones, especially in this application. So everything's braided steel. It's either a hard line or braided steel line for all the flexible couplings here. Then up here in the front, if you can see where those 2 fittings are together in that little clamp, that's where my adjustable proportioning valve used to be. Took it all the way out. I adjusted it numerous times and I ended up going with full pressure, so I just did it. So I do not run a proportioning valve to the back. I've driven this car on the street and I've raced it year after year and I don't have any problems as far as the brakes locking up or anything. So it worked for me, it works good. I'm not telling you to do that, but you should always at least put one on to try it to see what you're going to need. And then the master cylinder, that is a disc drum style master cylinder, different from what I had. It's got a 15/16 bore, and if you know all about force multiplication, you got to get the right size bore for your master cylinder when you do a disc brake conversion, or you'll be like pushing on a concrete floor. You'll push it and it'll be hard as a rock and it won't be stopping. But this works really well. I've got the adjustable push rod. I was able to actually raise my brake pedal up a little bit so I can really put a lot of pressure on it. Well, that concludes this video for today. I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. I try not to get the videos too long. Keep your interest up. We'll do the front brakes and the wheel pack on a separate video. In fact, it kind of got a little tired. I think I'm going to take a break. See ya. Hey, like and subscribe.